Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you, March 18th, 2025. I have all of your stories for your rush hour ride to work. And we'll be discussing fantasy suites, which were last night on Bachelor Grant's season. I'll save that for the end of the episode for those that might not want to be spoiled. Maybe you haven't watched it yet, so we'll do that at the end. But we've got Wombat Girl speaking out. We've been covering the American who was kicked out of Australia for picking up a baby wombat, and we will share what she has to say. And in other animal news, former Bachelor Lowe shares a terrible story where his own dog attacked him. It's absolutely wild, and he's lucky to be alive, to be quite frank, excuse me. And then we've got Juicy Scoop. That's right. I'm here in Los Angeles at my mobile studio setup here, and I did Juicy Scoop, Heather McDonald's hit podcast. I'll talk about that, what it was like to meet the iconic Queen of Bravo, and also from one dramatic storyline that covering Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, to another. I really don't want to have a beef with Taylor Lorenz. She has responded to me and my concerns over her latest article. I'll share what she has to say. I got to tell you, it's pretty wild. I don't want to pull focus away from the real stories. You never want to make yourself the story. Please do not make me your enemy, Taylor. I don't want to go there. I'm waving the white flag already. We'll get into that. And is the Statue of Liberty going to get repossessed by France? That's right. It was a gift from our friends, Lady Liberty. Are they taking it back? I'll have that story and all these others coming up right now on The Rush. Well, we see this play out when someone gets internet shamed. They'll usually have an apology. It won't come out right. They'll have to redo it. So she's already had this diatribe, but the baby wombat snatcher, I call her Wombat Girl, is now saying sorry, but it comes with a caveat. Here is what she had to say.
I want to begin by taking responsibility for my actions. What I did was an incredible mistake, and there hasn't been a moment I haven't regretted it.
And that's where it needs to end. That's all she had to say. Maybe give it a month, come back later, but no, she keeps digging.
However, there's something much bigger at play here, and it would be a disservice to ignore it. If this situation has proven anything, it's proven that Australians care deeply about their wildlife, and that is something I intensely admire. Every year, however, the Australian government issues permits for the killing of thousands and thousands of wombats across Australia, along with millions of kangaroos.
So she goes into this whole thing about how she's actually the hero. Listen, I don't know what the policies are with wombats in Australia, not my expertise. Although if anyone does, please come on the show and let us know. I'm sure they regulate the population sizes so they don't get out of control and things like that, like we do with deer and any infestaceous species. Infestaceous, is that a word? Probably not. Either way, the point, by the way, I did 5 podcasts today, so cut me some slack. I can barely talk. My voice is going. But either way, she makes it to that it's her mission to now let the people know about the issue with the baby wombats, and she's not the bad guy. It's just a whataboutism, and it's not important. She's not the person to be the messenger for Australian wildlife policy. Just apologize and go away for a bit. That'll probably work out better. That's my thought. Well, here's our next animal story. Bachelor alumni Lowe posted a video. I watched the whole thing. I'm telling you, if you have any sort of weakness when it comes to gore, this ain't for you. It is a bloodbath. The title of this video is I Was Squirting Blood Everywhere. 3 attacks by my own dog. I'm just going to share a brief moment of it, but it's interesting. I should say that it's very interesting, but also it could have been way more tragic. Have a listen.
He shows his teeth at me and just attacks me. And I don't mean bite and run off like a lot of dogs do when they're scared or defensive. I mean, attacks me. And I feel him just kind of ripping into the flesh of my arm.
And then he goes on. And essentially,
and at this point,
he's had this dog for 3 months, and the fire alarm went off. And they basically said something got triggered in this dog. They don't blame the dog because it's he must have been trained or abused or something went off on this dog. And it attacked Sean and then goes to the ER. The next day he comes back and the dog escaped wherever they were holding him and ran after Sean again and attacked him again. He had to go back to the ER. And it's a tragic story. And sadly, a lot of the comments online are like, well, what did you do to this dog for it to, and it's like, look, you just, yeah, sure, dogs are domesticated, but there are instances where it's scary and they've got kids. And he basically said, hey, look, I'm 220 pounds, but imagine if they did this to one of our kids. And those thoughts go through his head, and you could tell how deeply traumatized they were from this experience. It's like, look, this isn't like a dog yapped at your ankles. Like, he was attacked by this dog and had to hold him down for 10 minutes while they waited for the police to come. And it just brutal, brutal. And he thought it hit an artery, and it was a bloodbath. So real scary story. And he said he felt like he needed to tell his audience, because they're going to see the scars all over his arms. They're going to wonder where the dog is. And I don't know if they're putting the dog down or whatnot, but I mean, you can't, you don't take chances like that around your kids. All right, well, let's move it on to another story. This is a big one here. Heather McDonald posted this on her Instagram. She had me on her channel. And I didn't really tell you this story yet, so I'll just say it very briefly. Heather McDonald has a huge audience on Juicy Scoop. It's a big deal, this podcast. She invited me to come on, and I jumped at the opportunity. And you guys know I try to fly out when I can to do in-person interviews when it's with a guest that, I know it can go places. So if you're new to my channel, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Heather. And if you're returning, just know I'm going to try to get these interviews, and I'm going to try to keep growing the show and get to as many homes and earbuds as possible. Heather McDonald is an absolute consummate professional. We shot at this amazing studio. She used a new set. They have a couple different rooms. And yeah, she just was all over it. We could have talked for 10 hours. I mean, I'm not kidding when I say we could have talked for 10 hours. It felt like I was having a conversation with an old friend. So this interview that happened is supposed to be coming out today. As of the recording on my end, it hasn't come out yet, but make sure to check out. But I think you'll really like it. I informed Heather about my part in the Clayton Echard paternity scandal. We talked Blake Lively. We talked Meghan Markle. We talked about a whole bunch of different things. And I think you'll like it. And I have to thank my audience, because it's because of you that you reached out to her and showed her we have a good following, that we got on the show in the first place. And I thank you guys for being a part of the business plan, for being there to get people's attention so we can have these fun conversations. So if you do end up enjoying that podcast episode and like the extra content, maybe at your work or on your way to work, just know that collectively it's thanks to you guys. And Heather said she'll have me back, and I'd love to, when I'm in town, rotate in and catch up with her. I'd absolutely love for that. So more to come, but it's just nice to have a nice productive conversation and make a new friend in the industry. All right, well, let's do this. Let's dive right into the Blake Lively stuff, shouldn't we? Why not? Here we have a crisis PR person who we've covered before, Reputation 911. Got to get an interview with this guy. He's real interesting. He gives an update about what went wrong with the Glamour article. Not that the article was bad, but Stephanie McNeil, the journalist, how she got it wrong. After I share this, we will parlay that into Taylor Lorenz, who wrote the article about how the right-wing media machine is eating up this story and whatnot. So let's take a quick break. Word for the sponsors. We'll come back with this story next. All right, here's what the crisis PR has to say about the fighting and arguing between the journalist Stephanie McNeil, who wrote this Glamour article inside the Blake Lively hate campaign fueled by Mommy Sleuths, and how she kind of dabbled in the ring with the content creators. Have a listen.
I wanted to offer some thoughts regarding the Glamour magazine article that's really pissing off a lot of people, especially content creators on TikTok, the Mommy Sleuths, quote unquote. And here's my take. The article, I think, was fine for the most part. I mean, there are some really bizarre conspiracy theories out there that folks feel emboldened to promote on TikTok and other platforms. But where I think Glamour and Stephanie McNeil really screwed up was in that weird video response that she posted on Instagram. What was that? Post the article. You made a substantive good case in your article, but the video then shifts towards just sort of blaming the content creators and highlighting them as just sort of chasing money, chasing dollars. If you're going to blame anyone, blame the platforms. Don't blame the creators. Hey there.
I mean, pretty good stuff from the crisis PR, real measured stuff from Reputation 911. He's been sharing a lot of interesting thoughts from a very, very just neutral perspective here. And look, I agree. When I responded to Stephanie McNeil, it was with all grace. And this really bothers some people that don't think you should be having grace. But I'm trying to give grace because I'm trying to not be the problem, right? It's easy to cherry pick like the conspiracy theories and the internet's so angry. And a lot of people did get really angry at Stephanie McNeil. And I'm like, listen, I'm telling you why you're getting it wrong. Well, I did the same when it came to Taylor Lorenz. She wrote this article, Lively vs. Baldoni, how right-wing influencers are weaponizing the fight to take down #MeToo. Now, my response to this was, full of different thoughts. My initial thought was, first of all, she included me in this article right here. And it was all, she included like Brett Cooper, who was this, I guess, big time YouTuber, 1.4 million subscribers. But when she shared my thumbnail, she didn't provide any context. She lumped me in with Candace Owens. She lumped me in with the right-wing commentator she was talking about. So when I responded, I basically just said like, hey, friendly progressive here. Saw my YouTube art was used in a piece about right-wing commentators covering Blake versus Justin. Could you give my thumbnail credit and or also specify that I am not a conservative YouTuber? So yeah, the problem I had was she never even used my name. If you at least use my name, people can Google me and figure it out for themselves. She said, I literally never said you were conservative. If you read the story, you'll see that it's talking about how liberal influencers such as yourself unwittingly feed the misogynistic hate campaigns. But I guess it's easier to lie about my article than engage with what I actually wrote. And I said, how am I lying? This is where it gets murky, right? Let's tone it down. I came to you in a very friendly manner. And I did. I want no beef with Taylor Lorenz. I can't say this enough. I'm busy. Life is good. I just want to cover this case and it be fair. I don't want to pull focus away from it into some sort of side thing. So she said, she goes, I'd love to chat with you about this, but misrepresenting my piece to your audience, saying I don't want liberals and leftists to cover this topic, quite literally the exact opposite of what I say in the piece, is unproductive at best and harmful at worst. So she's now mischaracterizing what I said. Now, my belief is folks like Taylor Lorenz, they want this perfection from people. They want everyone to be on the exact same side of the story that they are. And if you're not, they write these pieces about how like the right is weaponizing this. Look, I can't control what the right-wing influencers do, right? I have no control over that. All I can do is try to call balls and strikes the way I see it. That's my barometer. It's my guiding North Star. Try to use my intuition and my critical thinking skills to call balls and strikes. Now, I would love to chat with Taylor Lorenz, but she's not responding to the issue I had. Why is it when there's a conservative person, she credits them right here. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on audio, she uses the thumbnails to call out these other people's. DeFranco boosted a far-right influencer in his coverage. I have no idea how DeFranco boosted a far-right influencer, but these terms, boosted an influencer, like what did I do? What did I do in my coverage that made it so that you wanted to share my thumbnail and not include, first of all, any credit for my artwork, which not a big deal. I'm kind of being nitpicky here. But if you're going to use my face and my image, at least specify who the fuck I am. And by that, I mean, credit my name. Find my YouTube channel out. If you want to talk about me, share it so that people can see for themselves how fair I've been about this. That's my big beef, right? So she wants to talk, but now she's saying I'm the one misrepresenting. Listen, let me say this loud and clear to Taylor, and I'll tag her in this so she sees. Taylor, I'm your biggest friend in all of this. I don't want any beef with anybody. I want to limit the heckling and go straight to what's important. But my issue is, honestly, as I speak this to her and other people, pull focus away from the culture war issues. Pull it away. You can cherry pick and see that Candace Owens is covering this and Ben Shapiro is going to jump on this. Megyn Kelly's going to jump on this. I don't control that. I'm not boosting them. They have far larger audiences than I have. My beef is not with you. I know nothing about you, right? This is just about the point. Elevate and champion the voices that are covering this from a possible progressive or leftist angle, right? Because I don't want to see this as political, but everything I do in my coverage, in my core being, is really aligned with a lot of progressive issues. Don't burn your bridges with content creators like me. But as I said, I'm not going to change my opinions on things because someone who may be farther left than I am in some issues, I guess, although I don't know, I'm pretty liberal, right? But someone who might be farther left than I am thinks that I'm I guess maybe a stooge for the right. I don't understand what I would be considered. She says it's easier to lie about her article. And by the way, she says, "Oh, did you even read it?" Yeah, I mean, I read it in a YouTube video. I read the whole thing. So my whole point is this, Taylor. Nobody's giving you more grace, more empathy than me. I'm not the type of person you want to burn bridges with. I'd be happy to talk to her. I just don't want to be the next target of whatever thing she's got going on. I'm busy. I got a baby and a wife. I'm going to do my job. I got enough ladies in my life right now, Taylor. You know what I mean? No, but with all seriousness, I'm going to do my job and try to call balls and strikes on Blake. But I'm saying this publicly because I don't think Taylor did a good job in her article of properly addressing what the story's all about. And the only mention she made of me in this article was to show I guess a good thumbnail involving Candace Owens, and didn't show or credit me at all. So even with all that said and done, I still don't have credit here. Not a big deal. We're thriving. We're doing fine. But it would be nice to see that was updated. It hasn't been. So happy to talk. Let's move it on away from that. And there will be more to cover here. And again, for some people, this is the moment where it like jumps the shark, where it starts to get personal. But for me, this is where you show how it devolves into these other culture war issues that it's not. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni has almost nothing to do with the Me Too movement. I don't know if you get paid every time you mention Me Too, but I'm a champion for believing people, but also analyzing their evidence, right? So I'll continue to call balls and strikes, and I'll continue to share any conversations I have or don't have with Taylor Lorenz. I'm not the type, and you can look at years of this online. I'm not the type to have Twitter beef with people. I don't have the time. So what I do have is the platform and podcast to share with people my thoughts and opinions. So we'll continue to cover this and see what transpires. She's more than welcome to come on my show, but we're going to have to stick to the specifics of where I think she, got it wrong in her own coverage, and where maybe she can try to be a change for good and elevate voices that might be similar to hers, and not just shame people for, I guess, being pawns and stooges for the right-wing agenda. We can't control them. Rather than try to knock that down, let's worry about our own free speech and what we can do to elevate voices in accordance to what we might align in, All right, well, let's do this. Coming up next, let's cover Grant, his fantasy suite. I did the live watch party at 33 Taps in Silver Lake last night with the Game of Roses. It was fantastic. We'll get into the story next. All right. Well, last night was the fantasy suite. So if you stuck around, we'll get to who was eliminated and who wasn't. It was a real, I don't know. Is it a good season? Is it a fun season? Is this the last Bachelor season ever? I mean, there are whispers that the show might be canceled. There's whispers. I don't know what to tell you, folks. Who knows? Ratings are abysmal. We hope it goes well for Grant. So I went to the Silver Lake watch party here in Los Angeles. It was so great to see everyone. I got to tell you, Chad was there. His co-host, I guess, was at her honeymoon, right? So congratulations to Lizzie. Fun stuff. But Chad, just unbelievable. I mean, they are so good. Game of Roses is so good at what they do. So much respect for them to carve out a niche in a world that had so much clutter. The Bachelor had so many podcasts, and Game of Roses just came out and they nailed it. And they got a whole bar to show up and watch it with them. I mean, they write a book. They've got the the glass of rosé or whatever, a game of rosé, whatever the hell it's called, their drink. I mean, it's just one thing after another. So bravo, well done. I got to see some of you guys meet in person. Shout out to Katrina. You might remember Katrina had to evacuate her home in Pasadena at the wildfire, and her large land turtle, I don't know, tortoise turtle, I think it's a turtle, her 150 or whatever pound, 20-year-old turtle is doing fine. I got the update. The turtle's doing good. He's humping things apparently. So he's everything's going well with him, but just good to meet Katrina and others out there. So big shout out to you. It's always so humbling to see how much support we have out there when we get to meet you in the flesh. But either way, Grant gave his roses one to Juliana. She was the first of the 3 fantasy suite dates. Says, hey, I'm falling in love with you. So looking pretty good for her. Zoe got her first time alone with Grant. They had a silent retreat, which wasn't the most productive way to use their alone time. And they chose to forego their individual rooms for the fantasy suite, folks. And I guess it didn't go that well because she didn't get the rose. Latia did here. And the big question is, will her Mormon faith get in the way of things? She says sex is off the table, but they got to know each other in the fantasy suite. So it's down to their 2 finalists right there. That's where it stands. So interesting stuff. I don't know if the season's that interesting yet, but everything really comes down to the final episode. So we'll report on it as it comes. And then I guess we'll have to wait for Bachelor in Paradise. Bachelorette has been postponed. What will they do with Bachelor? Will they wait and see how Paradise goes with the new producers? And we'll have to find out. All right, well, let's move to another story here. You never want to see this. The White House is responding to a French politician who wants the Statue of Liberty back. My guess is this isn't a series. Obviously, they're not going to take the Statue of Liberty back. It was a gift, but there are multiple statues of Liberty, right? There's, I think, 3. There's our Statue of Liberty. Then there's the one in the river in France, the Seine River, right? And I think there's a third one. If my friends at the National Treasure podcast could let me know. There's, I think, a smaller one. But who cares, right? Here's their response.
There is now a member of the European Parliament from France who does not think the U.S. represents the values of the Statue of Liberty anymore. They want the Statue of Liberty back. So is President Trump going to send the Statue of Liberty back to France?
Absolutely not. And my advice to that unnamed low-level French politician would be to remind them that it's only because of the United States of America that the French are not speaking German right now. So they should be very grateful to our great country.
It's not a bad response as far as like, oh, they dissed us, we're going to diss them. But whatever happened to they go low, we go high. We're the United States of America, right? And the truth about liberty and democracy has never been a question more delicately asked in today's world. We got this Venezuelan story. There's these Venezuelan migrants. They're accused of being part of this gang. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but they did not receive due process. They have not only been deported, but they were sent to that El Salvadorian prison, which is known for torturing and like slave-like conditions, right? And I think it cost the U.S. government $6 million. They're basically subcontracting the prison system out. I said this was a bad idea because you shouldn't be able to send American citizens and export them to other prisons. That's not what's happening here. But a judge ruled, turn the plane around. The judge that was in control, essentially, of whatever department it was that sent them all out said, turn it around. There's people that are saying some of these are, just refugees or people that are not refugees, but like were fleeing the gangs. And look, they might all be gang members, but to set the precedent that we're not going to give them due process is scary. Same thing with Mahmoud Kahil, I believe is his name. I might have that wrong. Where we said we're just going to shoot him out of the country, even though he's got a green card. No, we have to follow the laws. We have to move slow and have due process so that journalists can pick these things apart and investigate if it's being done right. Now, their claims are, what, you're going to just be okay with these violent criminals being stuck here? Not at all. But we don't even know if these are all gang members or if they're just like finding the quota and shooting them out of the country. And if it's the gang members now, who is it next? So the big question that's been asked in our democracy is what's going to happen when Trump says no to a judge? When a judge puts a ruling down and Trump says, no, I'm not going to follow that ruling. Well, now we're finding out. Have a listen to this.
Trump administration violated a court order when it deported Venezuelan migrants to El Salvador. Andrew Weissman's been monitoring that hearing for us.
So this is a doozy. So the judge wanted to have a factual hearing. He said, I'm not going to make a ruling today on whether you're in contempt. I want to understand the facts better. That usually means that the government, knowing that they're there, has to answer. This was their answer. We are not telling you the facts. The judge had a whole series of questions about what happened. When did the planes take off? When did they land? Who was on the planes? How many people? All the normal things you'd want to know. When did the declaration, the proclamation by the president, when was it signed? When did it go into effect? No answer. We are not telling you, Judge. The judge said, well, can't you tell me if you're saying it's classified? I get classified information all the time. He's the chief judge in the district court. He said, why can't you tell me at least privately? We're not telling you that. We're not giving you the law as to why we can tell you. And the judge pointed out, he said, you have the burden on that. You have to do that. And so he then said, why did you ignore my order yesterday? What's your answer? And they said, we're not required to comply with an oral order from the bench. You had been talking to me about all the things about bring the planes back. I'm ordering you to do that. They said that was an oral order, and we viewed that as superseded by the written order, so we didn't have to comply with it. The judge seemed incredulous at that.
So who's defending this stuff anymore? I think some folks have a hard time understanding the severity of what's going on. I think a lot of people get it, but also, look, no, I'm not trying to say that like this is going to lead to the Holocaust. I have no idea what it's going to lead to. But if you let a plane of people be sent out of the country to go straight into a prison system with no accountability, no flight logs, no way of publicly sharing who these people are, what crimes they've committed, none of that. It is the precedent of disaster. And we need to be above that. Put more weight and energy into sprucing up the judicial system that can decide who needs to be deported and who doesn't. But to just throw them all in a jail and really, like they're saying, just make these people disappear without any due process. This is not American, and it violates the rules, and they're violating the judges. Who enforces the judicial, like, sort of rule book? Well, the enforcers are, the marshals, right? Which is controlled by the executive branch. So we're starting to see the fabric of democracy dissolve, at least right now, in what's going to be done about it. I don't say any of this to freak people out. We are just watching. And again, it took a few months because these things have to work their way through the court system. But what will happen? Well, when the judge says no, I said turn the plane around, and they say no. Well, as of right now, I guess it goes to the Supreme Court. I don't know, Superior Court. I don't know what happens next. And a lot of people are sitting on their hands and not speaking out about this. And here at the Rush Hour podcast, we have to share the truth. That's what we have to do. I pledge it to you guys. I'll give you my truthful and honest opinions, and you can like it or not, but at least you know where it's coming from. All right, that's it for me this morning. I'm going to try to drink some tea and get my voice back, but I've done a ton of podcasts. Not only will you see Juicy Scoop, but I think I'm on Donna Bowling's podcast today. It's on YouTube. We talk a lot about content creating and comedy and things like that, and I got a bunch of other shows coming up. I'll be on Zach Peters later this week, Zach Peters. So lots of good things happening, all through your support. Thank you all so much. We'll be back in a little bit. I'm Dave Neal, and this is The Rush.